Erev Tov, everybody. It's wonderful to look around the gallery view. I encourage folks to switch to gallery view and see each other, our Bait community of friends and cherished fellow journeyers, especially in this leg of the journey, the end of Elul and approaching Tishrei and the Chagim, which are nearly upon us. I know this year we're all bringing so many feelings, so many hopes, so many thoughts, and so many tefillot with us into these Yamim Noraim, with the last year that we've experienced together. And it's meaningful to take a little time just to reflect and share as we make our way towards those Chagim as a community, and to do so with our clergy team of this year, with myself and Rabbi Sarah and Rabbinic Bracha, and with our wonderful rabbinic interns who are joining us this year, Sophia Freudenstein, a Maharat student, and Josh Suatez, a YCT student. You'll have many opportunities to learn with them over the course of the year, and this is one of the first of those opportunities. So as has been our custom over the last number of years, we're going to, each of us, share a couple of slightly longer teachings and reflections, and then a few lightning rounds of just 1 minute responses to a few questions, to share what's on our hearts with you and invite you to reflect on what's on yours as listeners as we approach the Yamim Noraim. So for each one, we'll share on the screen the question that we're going to respond to, and invite you, if you want to write into the chat an answer to the question for yourselves, so we can see how each other are thinking about these days that are ahead and what we're bringing with us into those days. So let me share my screen with our first prompt. So our invitation as we begin is to share a high holiday text, however that means to you, a high holiday text that's meaningful to you and why. We'll hear first from Rabbi Sarah, then from Josh, then from Rabbinic Bracha, then Sophia, and finally from me. But feel free to take a moment and type into the chat, if you wish, a high holiday text that's meaningful to you.
Okay, so please feel free to type in some of your answers, but in the meantime, I want to share my text. So this year, the part of the liturgy that is just swimming up to me is that section that we say right before we blow the shofar for the first time. And it's said in that the person who's blowing the shofar says the first line, and then the kihila, the community, responds and repeats that line. And the first word just jumps out at me, min hametza karetiya, anani b'merchavya. In my distress, I call on the Lord answered me and set me free. What a tefillah this year, as we bring this year 5784 to a close. From the depths, from my distress, we call out. And this first line, I think, is meant to recall the halacha that the shofar, when we blow the shofar, we cannot blow the shofar from the wide end, but we have to blow the shofar from the narrow end. Minei Meitzar, of course, also means from the narrow straits, from the little space. And that narrow space is the place where we're going to put our lips and blow in such a way, it's tefillah out into Shamayim, out into the heavens, waking God up and hoping that God hears us, which brings us to the next line. Koli shamata, you have heard my voice. Do not close your ear to my need for my pleading. We're turning to God and saying, God, this mitzvah of shofar is one of hearing, of listening. There's no mitzvah in blowing, but there's a mitzvah in hearing. And just like other times in history, you've heard, you've seen the distress of the Jewish people, we're asking Open your ears, God. Listen, have compassion, hear all that's going on. And then the next few lines, your first word is truth, and each of your righteous law is eternal. Be your slave's guarantor for good. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. Rosh Devarecha emet olamo kol mishpat. What is the first word? The first word is truth. The first word in the Torah is let there be light. God's word is actually meant to be filled with light, not darkness. And these two psukim taken together have the words emet, mishpat, staka. And I think if you look at the next pasuk, it has the word tov. And I think that that is a reference to the four pillars of God being one of chesed, of tov, of emet, of truth, of mishpat, and tzedek, of justice. And so we hope that the sound of the shofar brings us all those four elements, all those characteristics of God. And finally, the next three sentences, I think, are sentences that bring to mind the word lamdeni, limud, lamed, learning. I think that the sound of the shofar is meant to open within us a curiosity for us to think and learn, for us to dig deep and teach others, to be curious in this world and not judgmental of others. And I think that's another symbol of the shofar. And finally, the one who sounds the shofar says, Allah Elohim b'tru'ah Hashem b'kol shofar. God has been raised up in the sound, raised the Lord in the voice of the shofar. B'kol Hashem is in the sound of the shofar. That is my bracha and my hope for us this year, that we'll feel God's presence this year. We'll feel God's love, God's chesed, God's tzedek and mishpat. And this year will be better than this past one.
Hi everyone, it's really an incredible opportunity to share with all of you. The holidays are some of my favorite times of the year. I guess that's why I'm becoming a rabbi. And it's a really nice, lovely opportunity to really get to meet everyone. So I'm just going to try to share my screen quickly. Did that work? Okay, great. So what I would like to talk about, I'm the type of person that I often am humming to myself throughout the year, the nusach, the different melodies of the holidays. It's really a really major highlight for me in the entire year. And typically, I think I would pick some different answer. But last night, I had the privilege to be at the slichot led by Rebelli. And there's something incredibly powerful about when we all come together, during slichot, and we continue it throughout the holiday season, when we come together to say the 13 attributes of God. There's that tune that we all know, but in addition to that, I really am struck by the words, and last night I was particularly struck by the words. I just want to read them quickly. It starts, we have that line that we all shout out together, Vayered Hashem ba'anan, vayitetzev imosham, vayikra b'shem Hashem. God came down in a cloud and stood with him there, proclaiming the name God. Vayavor Hashem al panav vayikra Hashem Hashem, and then God passed before Moshe and proclaimed, God, O Lord our God, a compassionate God, a gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, extending kindness to the 1,000 generations, forgiving inquiry, transgression, and sid. Yet not remitting all punishment, but visiting the inquiry of parents upon children and children's children upon the 3rd and 4th generations. And for me, when I think about those words, I really think that it kind of instills, it really instills the whole message of the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services in them. It's this whole season where we're really talking about that compassion. And I especially think this past year, which has been so difficult for all of us, I really felt myself really drawn just in those simplistic words, just those few words, being really able to distill all that desire that I have, all that need I have to feel a compassionate God, a close God, a God that cares, a God that loves, a God that a personal God that has a personal connection with us. And it really, for me, as I'm coming into the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur season, I'm hoping that I can feel that those 13 attributes of God, and I can feel that closeness, that love with me. And I hope we all can.
Hi, everybody. The text that I picked for this year is Aleinu L'Shabeach, which usually we feel is not the most important prayer. It's at the end. It comes so often during the day. We say it in every single one of our prayers, which may have lost its magic because of that. And not only that, but am I spotlighted? Okay, cool. But we often give it to children to sing, which is beautiful because it has a tune. But on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, this seemingly simple prayer gets elevated. And what I found so interesting when I was looking into it was that actually it was written for Rosh Hashanah. I didn't realize that. It was originally written only to say on Rosh Hashanah in the section called Malchuyot, which is about kingship, and it opens up the section of Malchuyot, of kingship. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol. We know that. Aleinu l'shabeach. That's the one I'm talking about. But if you look inside, there are words about God not just being king, but being the king of all kings. Melech malchei hamelachim. 3 times means the king of all kings, if you could translate it into English. And then it continues with more verses that have to do with God being our king. And that's why it's used for Malchut. But here's the part that I love about Aleinu on the Yamim Noraim. You may know that there are some who have the custom to prostrate themselves, Aleinu. So some communities only the Chazan does it, but in my family, and in some communities only the men do it. But I always grew up doing it with my mother, and it added excitement to that moment because what's the choreography of the rest of the year? It's sitting or standing or sometimes bowing our head in tachanun or maybe bowing down like Baruch Hu. But when do you ever prostrate yourselves? Never. So it felt like a moment of excitement and change. And what does it mean? And what it means to bow completely to God. I also love that we had to bring something to Shul to prepare ourselves for that, to be not allowed to prostrate yourself on a stone floor. And our minhag, our custom, is to put something between ourselves and the floor. But it also reminds me of what was it like in the Beit HaMikdash, because in the Azara, in the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, they stood shoulder to shoulder, and yet when it came time to bow down, there was always room for everybody to bow down. So it still holds a moment of excitement for me. The last thing I want to say, and it might seem little, but to me it always feels very beautiful. Because the Chazan is standing with his legs together like an angel, when he jumps backwards to bow down, it's really hard for him to get up and to move backwards. So 2 men come up onto the bima and they help him. And to me, that always symbolizes what it means to have friendship, to have people help you in moments when you need help, when you need support, whether it's physical or emotional or spiritual. So I hope that you will see it the same way. When you bow Aleinu, whether you go all the way down or you just do from the waist, that's all fine, do according to your custom. But maybe you'll take a moment of what it means to be supportive and for all of us to do it together.
Okay, thank you, Rabbinic Bracha, for that really beautiful sentiment. I'm Sophia. I've met some of you already, and for some of you, it's the first time seeing me, and I'm really excited to be a part of this community this year. So I have a bit of a confession, which is that I went to Eli Kranzler's Slichot last night, but Rabbinic Bracha knows that I actually ran afterward to another set of Slichot that were happening on the Upper East Side, and those were Sephardi Slichot, which are a little different than Rebelli's style. And the Sephardim have been saying Slichot now for almost a whole month, not just starting from the Motzei Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah. So that kind of inspired me for thinking, what's the kind of text I want to bring? And the text I want to bring is called Achot Ktana. So I'm going to share my screen here. For those of you who might have a Koren Machzor in front of you, it actually is in a standard Ashkenazi Machzor. But this piyut is about a little sister. That's the title of the piyut. And the understanding here is that we are advocating for our little sister, Am Yisrael, to God right before Rosh Hashanah begins. The metaphor of the small sister, little sister, comes from Shir Shirim, which I have here. When we talk about Shir Shirim or the Song of Songs, it's usually a dialogue between two lovers, but there's always this third character of like the older siblings talking about the younger sister who has fallen in love. And so then Rav Avram Chazan Girondi, who is the one who wrote this piyut, he takes that metaphor and makes it so that we are advocating for little sister Am Yisrael, who has been mistreated by God, and we are demanding that she be getting the love that she deserves, which I think is a really powerful image and a little different than the usual kind of tshuva miyira, repentance from fear kind of model that I'm usually used to in an Ashkenazi setting. Here, we're angry and we're fighting for people that we care about and that they get sealed in the book of life, which I feel like is a little bit more strong and chutzpahdik than I'm usually used to. So the beginning here, it illustrates the actual metaphor. Achot ktana tfilotea orcha ve'ona, tihilotea elna refana lemachaloteha, tichle shana v'kiloloteha. Little sister, her prayers she prepares and proclaims her praises. O God, please heal her now her ailments. Let the year and its curses conclude. So here we have that metaphor, and we have another metaphor of a younger sister within Tanakh, which is Moshe talking about Miriam. When she has leprosy, he asks for her to be healed. El na refana. That same language is used here. And what we're praying for is that Am Yisrael is not doing well, which is obviously really resonant for a lot of us this year. And we are demanding that she be healed. And the end of each stanza ends with Tichle Shana V'Kiloteh. Let this year and its curses end. But what's really beautiful throughout this entire piyut is that kind of continues. But the last paragraph here starts like this. Chizku v'gilu kishod gamar letzur hochilu brito. Shamar lachem v'ta'alu letzion ve'amar solu solu misilotea techel shana uvirchoteha. Be strong and rejoice, for the plunder is ended. Place hope in the rock and keep his covenant. You will ascend to Zion, and he will say, pave her paths. Let the year and its blessings begin. So all the way up until now, at the end of the piyut, we've been seeing that we want this year to end. It's just been so horrible. But the last paragraph totally shifts, and we start focusing on hope and saying, now let this new year come and its blessings begin as well. So what I think is really powerful within this piyut is this shift. We say this piyut right between Mincha and Mariv on the first night of the year. And we're saying, okay, there was a lot of difficult things that happened in the past year. This year was really hard for us objectively in 5784, but it's not the first time in Jewish history that we've had a difficult time. And we've been able to turn towards hope even all the previous dark times before us. So I hope with this sharing of this piyut, we have another model for thinking about resilience in like a really beautiful and very powerful form in the poem of Achot Ktana.
Wonderful. I want to share something not from the Machzor, but a rabbinic text that could be understood to be about tshuva that I came across, but I can't tell you where until later on in this hour, and has been sitting with me over these last few weeks. It's a passage in the Gemara in Gittin, which I will share. The Gemara is puzzled by a kind of a conundrum about a robber who wants to repair their error. Al hamarish hagazul shebna'o, a robber who stole a beam and built a building with this beam integral to the building. So the rabbis teach in this case, Gazal marish uvna'o bevira, Beit Shammai omrim meka'kea kol habira kula umachzir marish liv'alav. Beit Shammai says, okay, you have a stolen beam, you make it a part of a building, and now you want to return the stolen beam. So you need to return the original object that you stole. And that means even if it requires destroying the building in its entirety, in order to return the beam to its owners, that's what you have to do. Ubeit Hillel omrim, ein lo ela demei marish bilvad. The only thing that the robbed party is ultimately entitled to is not to get back the original beam, even though it exists and could be returned, but only the value of the beam. Mishum takanat hashavim, because of the kind of edict or the repair that we want to make possible for shavin, for people who want to do tshuva. And here we have tshuva in a very literal sense of literally restoring something, an object that was taken that we want to lahashiv liva'alav, to return it to its owners. And the person who's trying to do that is also a person who's trying to do tshuva. And the machloket Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai is a powerful one. Beit Shammai says ultimately, when you've done something wrong and a situation is broken, you have to take every step that you can to restore it to its original state, even if that means destroying something that you've built. That's your responsibility. You made the original mistake, and it doesn't matter what you've done since then and built upon it. You have to give it back and restore things to their original state, or attempt to do so. And Beit Hillel says if that's the standard for tshuva, people won't do tshuva because they won't be willing to undo everything they've built on that one mistake, or the whole life that's gone forward after that one mistake that's now going to somehow need to be dismantled. People won't do tshuva. We have to lower the standards because tshuva is worth it, and therefore allow people to give back the worth of the object and leave the building they built with this stolen beam intact. I think it's such a profound reflection on what tshuva asks of us to do. The thing that I find most compelling or kind of powerful about Beit Hillel's answer is it's not just that it allows people to do tshuva more easily, but there's almost a complex consequence, which is we also then live in the building we built with the stolen beam. Beit Shammai actually allows us to feel a sense of total cleansing, because the thing that we've done wrong, we return it and we don't have to look at it anymore. And that's a good thing in a sense. Beit Hillel lets us off the hook in one way by allowing us to move forward, but we're still staring down that thing in our infrastructure, which is imperfect. I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong to this question, but I think it opens up for us the different dimensions and cost-benefit analyses in tshuva that we think about. I think for me, it's also been a part of this year which has been filled with so many what-ifs. What if certain things had been done differently? How would our world look different? And the Beit Hillel in me says, there's no going back. We can't put things back to the way they were before. We have the structure that we have now, and we have to figure out how to make sense of it. There are pieces that we can restore, but ultimately we're trying not to be held back by looking backwards, but challenged to move forwards, yet at the same time carrying the Beit Shammai sense of, sometimes we have to say, whatever it takes, I want to fix what's broken, even when that sometimes means breaking our reality as we see it today. I think these are metaphors, and they're real, and they're sitting with me as I think about tshuva this year. All right, to our second prompt. What's your most heartfelt tefillah for the year 5785? This could be a piece of our liturgy, could be the words of our own heart, it could be a line, a phrase, a wish, but an invitation to share our most heartfelt tefillah for this coming year, 5785. So we invite everybody to feel free to write into the chat, whether it's a prayer we find in the High Holiday Liturgy, just what our most basic, deep wish for the year ahead is. And we'll hear our answers from Josh, Rabbinic Bracha, Sophia, myself, and Rabba Sarah.
So before starting at YCT, I lived in Israel for 8 years. I did the army, and then I had the opportunity to go to college, and I worked a bit in Israel. And over that time, I developed a lot of incredible friends, and I had the opportunity to see many of them get married and to start families. And I'm still wearing my wedding shirt. I just got back from a wedding from 2 of my good friends who I met in Jerusalem, and they just got married on Long Island. And this year, seeing all of my friends, I've been, studying away in the Beit Midrash here at YCT, but it's been very, very difficult seeing all of my friends kind of stop in a certain way, stop the journey that they were on. They've been unable to continue building the families that they were building, whether that be with their children or simply, the couple growing together and building a home together. And it's been really difficult to see their whole lives just kind of in a certain way fall apart through reserves and through the challenges of this year. And seeing my friends today, seeing these other friends who are just now getting married, and seeing the love that they have and the care that they have for each other, it really inspired me, and it reminded me of all those other friends' weddings, and it reminded me of all the love that they care for one another. And my hope and my prayer this year is that all of my friends who are now at this point have left. We all lived in a little heart of a little community in Nachlaot in the center of Jerusalem. And my hope and my prayer that this year, as they all live throughout the country, that all of them can return back to normal, that in a way they can have a restart to their wedding day, that they can kind of, in a certain sense, go back to the chuppah, so they can restart their marriage, restart their lives, and focus on what they set out to focus on, which is building beautiful homes in the land of Israel.
The prayer that I chose is towards the end of Musaf, and let's see if you recognize this. Hayom, 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 hayom te'ametzeinu. That's just the first line. The word hayom has really been on my mind, because hayom means today, and there's a phrase which I mentioned on Shabbat when I introduced the Mishaberachs, that people are getting called up again to the army. Mehayom lehayom. That's an Israeli phrase that means now, right now, today, no warning. Mehayom lehayom. Not from today to tomorrow. Mehayom lemachar. Mehayom lehayom, including my own son-in-law. And the word hayom means today, but to me, this is about realizing that things can happen and change on a dime. Things change in an instant. They change so harshly. Our presence in this world and our reality change so harshly. Hayom on Simchat Torah or Ar Shmini Atzeret 1 year ago. And my prayer to God, because God has the power to change things, whether in small ways, in medium ways, in big ways. And my prayer to God is, Hayom, Hayom, God, Hayom. Make that change, help us. If it's bringing peace, if it's uncovering the truth for people whose eyes have been clouded, whether it's healing those who've had so many losses, keeping my own family safe and other people's families safe. Hayom, 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 hayom tevarcheinu. May you bless us. Please bless us, God. Hayom.
So the tefillah that came to mind for me is something that we say every single year, but I never noticed until COVID, when Reb Eli Kranzler released his album of Musaf. And one of the tefillah was Heye im pifiot, may you stand by the mouths. And when I thought about it in my own kehillah back in Toronto, where I'm from, the kahal just kind of like mumbles it along, and I never really paid attention until I heard a tune to it. But basically, this tefillah is a reshut. It is a prayer asking for permission, meaning that already us asking God for things, I guess, is a pretty daunting premise, that like we would ask God, who is so much more powerful than us, for things that we need. But especially on Rosh Hashanah, when the tefillah is so serious, and also the repetition of the Amidah looks a little bit different, we have a special tefillah built in to say, for the sake of the Shliach Tzibur, the person leading us in davening to make sure that their prayers get to heaven, which is a really beautiful image that instead of the person who usually leads, the shliach tzibur, being the one leading us, we are now in the community supporting the shliach tzibur as well. So the text, the part that in particular stands out to me, is the following two lines. Horei ma sheyomeru, havinei ma sheyedaberu, hashivei ma sheyishalu, yadem heich yifa'eru. Instruct them, us, in what to say. Lend us understanding so that we may know what to speak. Let us know what we might ask of you. Make it known to us how we might glorify you. And what I found very powerful this year when thinking about this tefillah, aside from just like the power of us like trying to support the shliach tzibur and asking God to be able to listen to the shliach tzibur, is that this is a year where it feels really hard to figure out what to say. We don't know what the world is going to look like in the next few weeks, the next few months, and things are constantly evolving. And it just isn't clear, even when you're speaking to someone at shul, what would be the right thing to hear that would make them feel better in that moment. And so what I appreciate about this tefillah is this recognition and sense of vulnerability that we don't always know what to say. And this tefillah is asking for God to give us the wisdom to figure that out. And I found that to be particularly grounding in realizing, once again, that this year, as difficult as it is, it's not the first time that we didn't know what to say. So the tefillah for me is, when thinking about this specific reshut, is the idea that we should be aware of the seriousness of what we ask, and ask for permission for it, and at the same time to recognize that we won't be able to always say the right thing, and it's all about trying our best in what God wants of us.
Amen. I chose a tefillah which is from the regular liturgy, but not the high holiday liturgy. And it's one that at various moments speaks to me, and this year very, very much. And I am taking it with me into the Yamim Noraim. It's the tefillah of Hashkivenu, the tefillah that we say as the final, and in the Bait, both on Shabbat and on weekdays, as the final bracha after Shema at Mariv. So it's very much evokes the sense of the fear of night, what the night may bring, and also yet what the morning may bring. And so we ask Hashkivenu Hashem Elokeinu l'shalom, help us lie down in peace, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chayim, and we ask God, our King, to allow us to stand up the next morning in life, and to guide us, to rescue us, to protect us, and to remove the many, many obstacles and adversaries from our way. Ki el melech chanun v'rachum ata, because God, you are a king, gracious and compassionate. And during the week, we end that bracha with Baruch Atah Hashem, Shomer Amo Yisrael La'ad. Please eternally protect God's people, Israel. And on Shabbat and on Chagim, we extend it, that bracha, and we add Pros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, spread over us your sheltering canopy of peace. Baruch Atah Hashem HaPores Sukat Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Amo Yisrael, V'al Yerushalayim. And I think for me, times of crisis and times of vulnerability are times when my instinct is to turn towards shmirah, to ask for security and safety and protection. And that's our most basic need. Without that, we don't have anything. But somehow, even if that's what we ask God for nightly, when we come to Shabbat and Yom Tov, we're able to transcend just the prayer for protection and move beyond it to the prayer for peace. When we need security and safety, it's not always easy to think about a vision of peace. But I think that the movement from the weekdays Shomer Amo Yisrael to Shabbat and Yom Tov's Pros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha is the invitation to focus on our safety and security, and also to have the breadth of mind to extend our tefillot beyond that to an expansive tabernacle of peace. So Of course, Sukkot Shalom evokes the sense of Sukkot. And so as we come into Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I'm carrying the tefillah that with all the shmirah, with all the protection and guardianship that we need, that we're also looking beyond to a vision past Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to Sukkot, past just protection to peace.
Thanks, Rev Stephen. A trope that I hear over and over the last few weeks and even months is the question about if people have lost hope. And I know that hope is sort of this trite idea, but it's been resonant leading up to Rosh Hashanah, because I've been hearing of a few people who led tefillah last year in different communities and didn't want to lead because they felt like God didn't hear my tefillah, it didn't work. What kind of shaliach tzibor could I be? And I've heard people say that, you know, they've gone to Israel to meet with constituents, with leaders, and the people in Israel who have been the most hopeful, the most optimistic, are nervous. And I think there's a little bit of a switch now, maybe just in the last few days, but the tefillah that most resonates with me at this moment is the phrase Yesh Tikva. And I want to put it in context. Yesh Tikva, there's hope. I want to put it in context. It appears in our Haftarah, but also in the section of Zichronot that we read in Musaf, in the Amidah. And Zichronot is all about God remembering, and God remembers our forefathers and foremothers. And you have to think about, what does remembering mean? Remembering could just mean memory. But when you start looking at what we're asking God to remember, we're asking God to remember people with love. V'gamet Noach b'hava, God remembers Noach with love. And then just a few psukim later, it references that God remembers Ephraim, Haben yakirli Ephraim in Yelech Hashuim, ki midei dabribo zachor eskarenu od, al kain hamu me'al Lord rachem arachmenu Hashem. That is Ephraim not a treasured son to me, my child of delights? As I speak of him always, I remember him again, and so it is that I long for him within. I will tend to him compassion, says the Lord. I remember my children with rachamim, with rechem, with love, with compassion. And the next phrase over here that is in the Haftarah, but not in the Zichronot section, is the declaration where Yirmiyahu says, V'yesh tikva. This crying, these tears is going to lead to hope, is going to lead to something better, is going to lead to a world where redemption is possible, where peace is possible. If only yesh tikva, if you can have hope. And that's my tefillah for this year.
As we move towards the close, we have 3 quick lightning rounds, a chance for each of us to share in just a minute or less an answer to a question for the coming days. And please feel free to join with us in putting your responses into the chat. Each thing that's been shared in the chat has been so moving and precious, so please continue to do so and feel welcome to do so. And so, the first question: what song or melody are you bringing with you into 5785? What song or melody, high holiday or otherwise, are you bringing with you into 5785? We're going to hear from Rabbinic Bracha and Sophia, myself, Rabbi Sarah, and then Josh.
When I lived in Israel, my daughter Meital, who was in high school at the time when I'm thinking of, loved going, as all the young people loved going, was to Sephardi Slichot. And this was absolutely not coordinated with Sophia. Well done. And I said to her, no, I've been to Slichot. Ashkenazic Slichot are boring. Not by us, of course. There couldn't be any difference. She kept saying all the time, you have to come, Ima, you have to come. And finally, the last night, she said, that's it, you have to come, you have to. She pulled me by force. And I couldn't believe that I hadn't come before, because the experience of being in Sephardi Slichot, in Israel at least, is transformative, amazing. I mean, Reb Eli is also fantastic in a completely different way. But now just imagine that you walk into this shul with a balcony for the women, and it is filled with people, just filled with people who all know all the words Be'al Peh, by heart. And when they recite the Yud Gimel Midot, they have those gorgeous trumpets, the Sephardi trumpets, blowing, like 10 people are blowing them as they recite Hashem, Hashem, Kel Rachum V'Chanun. But I'm going to play for you. Now, I never heard this sung by a woman before, and I thank Ira Epstein for sharing it. So imagine this being sung in a room by men, but I thought I was very proud of this woman for doing it. So just listen to a few words, and the words are Adon HaSilichot. That's how it begins. Master of Silichot. It's about penitence. That's what's sitting with me.
A tune that is sitting with me is to the words that came from last week's Parsha. Ki karov elecha hadavar me'od beficha v'yavavcha lasoto. For it, the Torah or tshuva, depending on how you read it, is close to you. It is in your mouth and your heart to do it, which I find to be a really comforting image, because sometimes tshuva can feel really daunting and scary. But when you read it with this pasuk, you realize that it's actually already inside of you, which makes that process seem much easier. And Eitan Katz put it to music. And I think the transition from the words into a nigun kind of shows exactly what that kind of intuitive tshuva is all about. It just comes out as a song from you, not even without words. So here's how it sounds. Sorry.
I was going back and forth, and I'm going to stay with Yishai Rebo from the new album, Kol Hadmaot HaKe'ev Shebak'u Mehalev Od Yatzmichu Olam. All the tears, the pain that burst forth from our hearts will yet sprout a world, a new world, I hope. And as the song goes on, he, as he is wont to do, integrates the liturgy that Rabbinic Bracha spoke about earlier. Hayom ta'amtzenu, Hayom tevarchenu, Hayom tegadlenu tidrasheu l'tova. Strengthen us and bless us today. Here's a little bit.
כל הדמעות הכאב שבקעו מהלב עוד יצמיחו עולם שדות פרדסים של המת כלנית ושקד יפרחו לשובם
Skipping ahead.
היום תאמצנו היום תברכנו היום תגדלנו תדרשנו לטובה היום תכבדנו היום תלבבנו היום תמלטנו מכל רע היום תרחמנו שמור על חיילינו השבת שבויינו המציא לנו נחמה.
Those last few words show us compassion today, protect our soldiers, return our captives, help us find comfort.
In keeping with my my theme of hope, the song that I've been singing actually since last year and even into last year is the section called Ochila La'el. I shall await or hope for God. I shall entreat your favor. I shall ask God to grant my tongue eloquence. And it's sung in Chazarat Hashatz during Musaf, and it's sung only by the Chazan, the Shaliach HaTzibor. And unlike the hope of Yesh Tikva, which to me is an active hope, it's a hope where we're asking God to do something for us. We're hoping that God acts compassionately towards us. This Ochila is a little bit more passive. It's a prayerful hope. And it's specifically not said during our silent Amidah. It's meant to be said while it's meant to be listened to while the Shaliach Tzibor is saying it, so that it gives us the opportunity to pray our own hopes, to sit silently in prayer and pray for the things that are in our heart and our souls, pray for the way that we want this world to look and be better. Stephen, I'm having trouble sharing screen. It says that you're still sharing, I think. Or Sophia, maybe let me just try. Okay, so I'm going to share the one that I have been listening to over and over again, and it's also a Yishai Rebo melody. I love that this melody compels us to daven, to pray from our heart.
Thank you, Rabbi Sarah. I think I have similar music tastes to Sophia. I've also picked an Eitan Katz song. I have picked one, it's called Lamancha. It actually comes from the Slichot that we said last night. And it's also repeated again on the night of Yom Kippur. And the words are as follow: Lamancha Elokeinu aseh v'lo lanu, re'eh amidatenu dalim v'reikim. Act for your sake, our God, and not for ours. Behold, our spiritual position, destitute and empty-handed. And now here's the part I really find quite beautiful. Haneshama lach v'haguf pa'alach chusa alamalach. The soul is yours and the body is your handiwork. Take pity on your labor. And I really think it speaks to a particular kind of feeling of truly giving over to God and recognizing that we are all, in our entirety, we are really the creation of God. I'm going to play a bit for you right here. Sorry if you couldn't hear the sound well. I'll also post, there's a beautiful live version that I will post in the chat now.
Okay, we're going to be picking up the pace for the very last two lightning rounds, try to make them more like lightning. And round number 2. What supplementary reading is coming with you to shul, even though, of course, we are all completely glued to every word of the machzor, but for the little moments, what supplementary reading is coming with you to shul? Sophia, and then me, Rabbi Sarah, Josh, and Rabbinic Bracha, feel free to write into the chat what supplementary reading is coming with you to shul. It can be anything.
So I'll be bringing Rabbi Daniel Ruttenberg's On Repentance and Repair. Rabbi Daniel Ruttenberg wrote a book, I think only a few years ago now, about how to think about tshuva and repentance when a lot of the really big and scary things in the world that are causing a lot of harm to others feel really out of our control, and just saying sorry isn't going to be enough.
I'll be bringing the book out of which I got the teaching I shared earlier about the stolen beam. It's Harav Eli Ofran's new book written since October 7th about Shuva, and he writes beautifully in the introduction, in a time when so much feels so bleak, the message that there is hope and we can always return is needed. Beautiful teachings about Elul, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom HaKippurim. He's one of my favorites. I've taught from him before, and grateful that my brother-in-law was in Israel at the right moment to bring this back for me. It's hot off the presses.
I found this question a little bit unfair because I really am so busy running around on Rosh Hashanah that I actually enjoy reading the bottom of the Quran because it's short and sweet, and that's where my eyes are drawn. But I was inspired, and maybe I will have time to look at Daily Inspiration for the Days of Or. Erica Brown's book called Return came out a few years ago. It's meant to be a teaching for each day of Aseret Yemei Tshuva, including the first days of Rosh Hashanah.
I'm going to do some marketing for YCT, for my yeshiva. I had an opportunity to take a sneak peek at some of the articles that were published in the High Holiday Reader, Yamim Noraim Reader, and I highly recommend it. I think there'll be copies available in the Bite, and everyone should pick one up.
I agree with Rabbi Sarah. I don't really have time for reading, but I have time for reading people's faces and saying hello to them. But a place where I have found a lot of nuggets is this machzor. It was a gift to me from my aunt, Alea Shalom. It is the machzor of the conservative movement, Machzor Lev Shalem. Actually has wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous nuggets. But in lieu of bringing something to shul, I've been reading this book, The Amen Effect. And this book has been making me feel good. It is so HIR. It is so about being there for each other. It is so about loving each other. And it's just, I find every night, no matter how late it is, I need to read a few pages of this to make me feel good.
And as we move towards the conclusion, a little bit of sharing, however we want to construe this. The question is, what would you like to do more of in 5785? And what would you like to do less of? Again, feel free to share in the chat. We want to hear from others as well, but we'll be sharing what we would like to do more of, what we might like to do less of in 5785. Myself, followed by Rabbi Sarah, Josh, Rabbinic, I think I wrote that wrong. Myself, followed by Rabbi Sarah, Josh, Rabbinic Bracha, and Sophia. I'm hoping to learn and teach more Torah in 5785, and I'm hoping to fall asleep on the couch less in 5785.
Okay. I'm hoping to pick up the phone a little bit more. It's a lost art. And to, in general, be a little bit more responsive more quickly.
I'm hoping to be an even better friend, and to reach out as much as possible. And I'm hoping to also remember other people's needs as much as I can.
I am hoping to exercise more and play more games. And I would like to have much, much, much fewer tears, which seem to come all the time at random moments, unexpectedly.
I'm hoping to remember this year that often big questions in life get solved with just taking some time and slowing down. And I want to check my phone less before I go to bed.
I think I'm thumbs upping all of those, all of those mores and all of those lesses. And my bracha for us, we have more time to spend together in the Bayit and beyond it as a community of connection, of aspiration, of learning and loving together. And may it be a Shana Tova. May it be a good year for all of us. Feel free to unmute. We always love to hear each other's voices, just to wish each other a Shana Tova. And we're here for anything you need between now and Rosh Hashanah and beyond. And we hope to see each other in person as much as we can. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Tova, thank you.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, thank you. Good night.
Shana Tova.
Thank you, Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Great to hear.
Wonderful
everybody.
session. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
For coming. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Shana
Nice to
Tova.
meet our new interns.
They're the best.
Hi.
They are.
Good night to all. Shana Tova.
Love the thumbs up.
Shana Tova.
Thank you, Shana Tova.
Hi, everyone.